Good morning, everyone. So, I'm Bhargav from ECE department. So, today I'm going to talk about the concept of optical activity from the subject of engineering chemistry. Yeah. So, what basically optical activity is? It is the ability of a chiral molecule to rotate the plane polarized light measured by a polarimeter. Polarimetry is a device which is used to measure the rotation of angle of this plane polarized light. So this is called as optical activity. So what basically optical activity does? The ability of an optically active molecule to rotate the plane polarized light at a definite angle is called as an optical activity. So simple polarimetry consists of a light source, polarizing lens, simple tube, and analyzing lens. We will discuss about the polarimetry later. Coming to this, polarimetry is one of the important instrumental methods of employing in analysis. So this measures the rotation of the polarized light as it passes through an optically active component. This technique involves the measurement of change in the direction of vibration of polarized light, which interacts with an optically active molecule. What basically happens is this polarimetry is a device which is used to measure rotation, the rotation of polarized light. Okay, when it passes through a polarized. Okay, so a substance is said to be optically active if it rotates the plane of a polarized light. So when we are going to say they are optically active, when it rotates the plane polarized light. When it does not rotate the plane polarized light, then we call it as an optically inactive. Okay, so when do we call it as an optically active? We call it as an optically active if it rotates the plane of a polarized light. So you can see this is your ordinary light. When you're going to keep a polaroid over here, it's going to be converted to the plane of polarized light. And this is again in the presence of an optically active substance. It's going to be divided into levorotatory and extrorotatory. About levo and extro, we will discuss in the further slides. So coming to the next one is what basically plane polarized light means. According to the wave theory of light, an ordinary ray light is considered to be vibrating in all the planes at right angles to the direction of propagation. If this ordinary ray of light is passed through a Nicol prism, the emergent ray has its vibration only in one plane. This light having wave only in one plane is called as a plane polarized light. What basically means that the light usually vibrates in all the planes at 90 degrees. So what happens when this light is passed through a Nicol prism, or else we can even call it as a polaroid, then it's going to be vibrating on only one plane. When the light is vibrating through only one plane, then we call it as a plane polarized light. So that we are using a Nicol prism. This Nicol prism is also called as a polaroid. Yeah. So this is your unpolarized light. The vibration takes place in all the directions. And when you're going to keep a polaroid, you are going to get only a one plane that is nothing but your plane polarized light. So this is how you convert unpolarized light to polarized light by keeping a polaroid, which is nothing but a Nicol prism. So this is the same explanation here. So it's going to be unpolarized light. You can see the vibrations are from all the directions. You have kept a polaroid. It's going to be converted to a vertically polarized. So coming to the main concept of the topic is the optical activity. So we have already defined what basically optical activity is. So it has defined that the magnitude of rotation depends upon the following factors. We already said that the ability to rotate a plane polarized light is called as an optically active. Yes. So this rotation, the magnitude of rotation depends upon nature of the substance, length of the liquid column through which the light passes, the concentration of the solution, the nature of the solvent, temperature of the solution, and the wavelength of the light used. So these are the factors which the magnitude of rotation depends. Once again, first one, the nature of the substance. Second, the liquid column through which the light passes. Next, the concentration of solution, nature of the solvent, temperature of the solution, and the wavelength of light used. Next, coming to your specific rotation. The rotatory power of a given solution is generally expressed as specific rotation. So what specific rotation means? It is the number of degree of rotation of plane polarized light produced by 1 gram of substance per ml. The measurement is carried out at temperature using absolute guide. The specific rotation can be calculated by the following relation. This is the formula for calculating your specific rotation. And using this formula, we can even calculate the numerical problem related to the specific rotation. So what is the formula? Alpha equal to 100 into theta by L into C. What basically theta means? Theta means the optical rotation of the observed angle of rotation. L is the optical length. C is your concentration in grams. And the alpha indicate the specific rotation. T indicate the temperature. Alpha, lambda indicate the wavelength. This is your formula for your specific rotation. Alpha equal to 100 into theta by L into C. Theta is your observed rotation, L is your length, and C is your concentration. So now let's just solve a numerical. So a sample containing a single ionomer of porous duct is placed in a polarimeter. The observed rotation is 9.06 degrees clockwise. Okay. Let's just so what is the formula for your specific rotation? Specific rotation alpha is equal to theta, that is your observed rotation, by L into C. Okay. So what is 9.06? 9.06 is your observed rotation. That is nothing but your theta value. This is your theta value. And the sample was made by dissolving 1.24 grams of fluoridic solution in a total solution of this. So this was your sample solution, which was made dissolved in the total solution of this. So what happens? It becomes 1.24 divided by 2.62. Okay, this is what your concentration is equal to. Okay, is this clear? So this is what your C value. This is what your C concentration. So concentration equal to 1.24 by 2.62. Then the light source was sodium D light, and the temperature was 25 degrees. So we don't require the temperature, we require the length. The length of the sample was 1.2. So by just substituting the values, you will be getting the answer. So alpha equal to the theta. Observed rotation is, since it's going to be a clockwise direction, it's going to be a positive one. Okay? It's going to be a positive. It's going to be an anti-clockwise or counterclockwise direction, then it's going to be negative. So since it's a clockwise direction, you're going to get a positive plus by the concentration, that is 1.24 by 2.62 into the length, that is 1.2. The answer, total answer, you're going to get it as 15.3 degrees. That is also going to be a plus degree. That means it's also going to be in a clockwise direction. Okay. So this is how you're going to do. Go to the next one. Yeah, next is the theory of optical activity. An optically active substance is one that rotates the plane polarized light. We have already said this is the definition, that optically active substance is that rotates the plane polarized light. So example, we will be taking lactic acid. So this is going to be a dextrolactic acid. This is going to be a levulactic acid. So what basically dextro and levo indicate? Dextro indicate that the rotation is going to be in clockwise direction. Levo indicate that it's going to be in the counterclockwise direction or the anti-clockwise direction. We have seen the earlier question. In that question, the observed location was plus. What that plus indicate? That it's going to be a clockwise direction. That is nothing but your dextro rotate. If it's going to be a negative one, that it's going to be a counterclockwise direction, and it's going to be a levo rotate. Okay. Yeah. Next, coming to the conditions for occurrence of optical active of the substance. What are the conditions for occurrence of optical activity? First one is the molecular dissimilarity. The optical isomers possesses non-superimposable mirror images. That is nothing but their images are non-superimposed. That means when you're keeping in a mirror, they will not superimpose each other. That's what your non-superimposable. Like same like your palm of your hands. When we try to superimpose a palm, that both the palms down, it is not likely to possible to superimpose. So that's what is your superimpose. Superimposable mirror. Superimposable means what? They are not going to impose. Okay, so they are not going to impose. The mirror images are going to be non-superimposed. Here you can see the same example, lactic acid and dextrolactic acid and leucolactic acid. When there is going to be a mirror, these are not going to be superimposed each other. They are going to be non-superimposed. Okay, because OH going to be mirror, H going to come here. So this character of non-superimposability is due to the molecular dissimilarity. So why we are going to get this non-superimposability? This is due to the molecular dissimilarity. Molecular dissymmetric. The optical isomers do not possess any types of elements of the symmetry. If there is at least one symmetry element present in the molecule, then the molecule will not show enantiomerism. So we will learn about enantiomerism later. So remember the one thing, that the non-superimposability is due to the molecular dissymmetry. Next one is going to be the plane of symmetry. The plane of symmetry divides a molecule in such a way that one half of the mirror image of the other half. That's for plane of symmetry. Okay, that means plane of symmetry. That we have already said the nature is of plane of symmetry. Plane of symmetry means what? When you take a square or something, if you cut it in the middle, the two halves are going to be same. That's what your plane of symmetry is. A molecule with at least a plane of symmetry that can be superimposed, its mirror image can be occur. About polarity also will be learning in further slides. A molecule becomes scalar which does not have any plane of symmetry and non-superimposable mirror image. So when a molecule becomes scalar, when they do not have any plane of symmetry and a non-superimposable mirror image. Example is tartaric acid. So this is when you cut a plane of symmetry, a positive tartaric acid, when plane of symmetry, going to get a negative. Next is mesotartaric acid also. You can see, so the tartaric acid in 1 and 2, that is here, are enantiomers, hence they are optically active. And here also the structures 3 and 4 are meso compounds with a plane of symmetry, hence the optically active. Yes, they are going to be active because when you cut the plane of symmetry, this part and this part are same because HH, OH, OH, COH, COH. When you cut a plane of symmetry, both the values are same. Since both the values are same, they are going to be optically inactive. Okay, sorry, optically inactive. When you go here, when you cut the plane of symmetry, are they equal? No. Here you have got OH, here you have got H. So hence they are going to be optically active. Here they are going to be optically inactive. Yes, next important one is about polarity. So the second important condition for a molecule to exhibit optical activity is polarity, which is due to the presence of sp3 carbon with 4 different groups attached to it. Such a molecule has no plane of symmetry and exists as a pair of enantiomers. A polar molecule is sometimes also referred as a symmetric carbon atom. So the molecule of optical isomers is given by the formula of 2N, where N is the carbon atom. Next, last concept is about enantiomerism. A substance to exist optical isomerism, it should be an enantiomer. What basically enantiomer means, that is the isomer should possess non-superimposable mirror images. Just if they are going to be non-superimposable mirror images, then it's going to be an enantiomer. So the enantiomers possesses identical physical properties but differ in the direction of rotation of plane polarized. So they are going to have a same physical property, but they are going to differ in the in the direction of rotation of plane polarized light. So the enantiomers have identical physical and chemical properties except towards optical active reagents. So they have identical physical properties except the direction of rotation of plane polarized light and similar chemical properties except the reactivity towards the plane polarized light. The phenomena is known as enantiomerism. What basically enantiomerism means, they will have the same physical property but they differ in the direction of rotation of plane polarized light. So that is what basically your enantiomerism is. That means they have same or identical physical properties, but they differ in the direction of rotation of plane polarized light. These are all the conditions for occurring the optical activity. So these are the 4 conditions. Next, going to about the instrumentation. As we have said, we have been using the instrument called polarimetry. So the optical active may be detected and measured by an instrument called polarimetry. This is your polarimetry. So this is your light switch. This is your unpolarized light. As I already said, your unpolarized light is nothing but the vibration takes place in all the directions at 90 degrees. So when you are going to keep a polarized, we also use the polaroid is nothing but what we call prism. It's going to be converted to one, only vibrating in only one plane, that is nothing but a polarized light. Again, when this is passed through a polarizing tube or a sample tube, we're going to get a rotated polarized light. Okay, and we'll be other using an analyzer, which is also Nicol prism, in order to identify the degree of rotation measure. So when you're going to pass through the polarized light, it's going to be rotated. And in order to find the degree of rotation, we are using this analyzer. But using this, we will be getting the degree of rotation. By this degree of rotation, you can calculate the specific rotation and find it out the properties of the one, whether it's going to be a dextrorotatory or a levorotatory. Yeah, this is the last. The polarimetry is a device which is used. So this is your unpolarized light. This is a polaroid. The reasoning called prism. It's going to be. We have said we are using a polarimetry tube. So what this polarimetry tube consists of? The polarimetry tube contains an optically active substance that is nothing but your amino acid. We are going so here in the polarimetry tube, you are going to contain an amino acid in a solution which causes the plane polarized to rotate. That's what our aim. No, we have got the plane polarized light. In order to find the rotation, we are using this polarimetry tube in which we have amino acid which causes the plane polarized light to rotate. And you will be having, finally, you will be having the analyzer where a rotatable polarizer. This lens is rotated until no light goes through the second lens. So the angle is then measured and determine the optical rotation. Okay, so in the analyzer, we can find the direction of rotation and the degree of rotation. So that's it about optical activity. We have discussed about what basically optical activity is, the plane polarized light means, and optical activity, how the factors depends on it, about specific rotation, problem related to specific rotation, the theory of optical activity, conditions for operations of optical activity, and the instrument, that is polarimetry. How does that work? So this is all about optical activity. Thank you.